Hello kids, welcome to today's session. This is Shweta Roy, your English master teacher at Vedantu. And in today's session, we are going to discuss with the important questions of the most important chapter, which we have already talked about in our previous session. Yes, Chief Seattle's speech. So let us see what are the important questions that can come up from this chapter and how to go about with it, how to approach those questions. So first of all, before moving on towards the session, I would like to thank all of you for your love and support. And because of your love and support, now Vedantu is a family of 5 lakh young minds. And if you haven't yet downloaded the app, then don't wait for anything else. Just go and download this app and study from the safety of your home and keep learning with the help of Vedantu. So now let us move to Chief Seattle's speech, important question and answers, and how to approach the question and answers. I hope you have already understood the the speech that we have already discussed in the previous session, wherein I kind of read out the text as well, so as to prepare you, so as to make you understand, because this speech is a little complicated and this chapter is a little complicated, not as easy as the other ones. So you need to understand every point and need to understand the political implications and various other themes that run throughout this chapter. So therefore I also read some of the portions of the some of the portions from the text to make your understanding better. So now let us see what are the probable questions. And yes guys, we have introduced Vedantu quiz, which is a live online quiz where you can score, learn and earn. So download the app from the Play Store right now. So now let us first talk about the themes. What are the themes that runs throughout the speech of Chief Seattle? Theme of friendship. Now see, these are the points that I have come up with, but of course you need to elaborate on these points based on instances from the chapter, from the text. So I'll tell you what are the instances that you need to include. Try to include those instances and frame a full-fledged answer. These are just the points, these are the guidelines to help you out in framing the answer. This is just a framework. You have to elaborate on the points, right? So first is the theme of friendship, control, religion, concern for nature, attachment of land. Theme of friendship. How is it a theme of friendship? Because the whites, they were proposing to encroach upon the territory of the natives. But the natives, they did not, like Chief Seattle said that we should not fight. So he accepted the proposal of friendship, right? So the whites, they made a proposal of friendship by the land treaty, and Chief Seattle, though he opposed this encroachment of the territory of the natives and violation of their rights, but he still welcomed their friendship, and he said that this is great on the part of the whites to come up with such a policy of friendship, because anyways they do not have anything to fear. We have we have all the things to fear, and it is great on their part that they have actually come up with the theme, with the policy, with such policy of friendship, where they are actually asking for the friendship of these tribal people. Control, that is the imperialistic policy of the whites, are also talked about in the entire speech, that how these whites, they have actually resulted in the extinction of on the verge of it's because of the whites that the natives, these tribes, are on the verge of their extinction. So they have almost diminished, right? And now they are on the verge of extinction. So because of the encroachment of the territories by these whites, so they kind of intrude upon their land, try to dominate, try to control all the area, the areas which are even belonging to the natives. and sometimes violating their rights, depriving them of all their rights and other things. So that was control. So yes, imperialistic policy followed by the whites, that is very much a theme which is there in Chief Seattle's speech. And we have seen that this domination of the whites, this is very, very, very very important theme, not only in the Chief Seattle speech but in other texts as well. When you read about Nelson Mandela, that was also when he gave his speech, Nelson Mandela's speech, that also talked about the kind of discrimination followed by the whites, right? White and black, so kind of racist attitude followed by the whites in Africa. So in Africa, what happened was there was a complete supremacy of this dominant white race who followed this policy of apartheid, whereby they stripped the Africans, the black Africans, of all their rights, privileges, and basic, rights of living. So that was also white domination. In India, we also faced a similar kind of subjugation at the hands of the white British. So this white, colonialism is prevalent all over the world if we look back and if we look back in our history, right? So similarly, the theme of control, domination, and imperialism is running in this speech as well. Religion, when he talks about the difference of religion between the tribes and the religion, Christian religion followed by the British, the whites, right? So the white religion, Christianity, and the native religion. So we will talk about the difference, like we have already talked about the difference between the religious, beliefs of these two communities in our previous session. So basically, you need to elaborate on that when you're writing about the theme of religion. Concern for nature. So this is an earliest speech by Seattle, which talks about, which is actually concerned about the nature and maintenance of nature, which is talking about the maintenance of nature. So in the very, his very beginning of the speech starts from nature being benevolent as to provide everything to man on earth. But he also says that this will, we think that this is eternal, but this will change. If we take nature for granted, if we try to exploit nature by, this westernization, modernization, civilization, and these leads to actually the destruction of nature, right? So if we continue to do this, then this change, this permanence will no longer remain. It will, it is subject to change. So we will get the fruits of our karma. So if we continuously exploit nature, nature will also not spare us. We will get the, this vicious cycle of karma will come back to us, and we will also be exploited, right? And then attachment for land. So he also talks about how much these tribal people, these aboriginal tribes, being very close to nature, are so much attached to land. Even when they are dead, they do not want to leave the land. They are a lover of this land which has given them the space to live, the soil of which is enriched by the blood of these aboriginal tribes. So these are the tribes, these are the native tribes, and they have a great attachment, great connection with the land, right? So this is what you are going to talk about when you are going to talk about the various themes of this speech. Next comes Chief Seattle. He wants peace and friendship, right? He understands the futility of war. He understands that war leads to the loss of young lives, and it is because of war and various kinds of fights that almost their race is on the verge of extinction. So he does not want to fight anymore. He wants the war to end, okay? And therefore, he knows that he is not, their tribe is not, powerful enough in terms of manpower as well, so as to compete the whites who are supreme. So therefore, he wants what? He wants that, he wants peace. He accepts the proposal of friendship and he wants peace. Next is he's keen to put the atrocities caused to their tribe by the whites aside in the interest of peace and prosperity. So he says that even if the whites have caused our tribes atrocities, we are facing atrocities because of the whites, but still we are agreeing to put everything aside. Why? Because we are concerned with peace and prosperity. We do not want to engage ourselves in the endless fight between our tribe and the whites, because he knows that he is not in a power or in a position to fight against the whites, right? So therefore he advocates peace, and he has the maturity to understand the destruction caused by these kinds of war, leading to the death of innumerable soldiers, right? So he understands the futility of war, therefore does not want to engage in any kind of battle with the supreme whites. So now let us come to the important question answers after we have discussed the main themes of this chapter, right? So first is, what does Chief Seattle tell about the condition of his people earlier? So how were the people living earlier, like before they were encroached or they were intruded upon by the British, by the whites, okay? His people occupied the land in large number like the water. So he is comparing the occupancy of the large number of people with the sea water which covered the seabed. First. Second is their teeming multitude. That means innumerable people, innumerable the native people. They were so many. They were so many that he compared their number, their multitudes with the vast with the innumerable stars in the night sky. So two comparisons he has made. First is like the water of the sea. Second is like the innumerable stars in the sky, right? So there were so many. Next is, what hint does he give regarding the cause for the depletion of this race? So earlier they were so many, but slowly and gradually they started to deplete. So what was the cause of this depletion? First is white men's intrusion. So white men started to intrude, encroach upon their territory, slowly and gradually, wiping away their race, their tribe. And second is, it is not only the whites who were responsible for the, wiping away these natives, but also the natives themselves. Why? Because they were impulsive. They did not decide properly. They went on to action without thinking much, right? And because of their revengeful anger, they got into battle maybe with these whites. And because of this revengeful anger and impulsive nature of young men, slowly and gradually their tribe started to deplete. So that is very important. Next is, what happened when the tribal young man became angry. So he says that youth is very impulsive. Youthful people, young people, they are so impulsive that they do not care about anything. They do not think about the larger consequence that they are going to face, right? So what do? They get very angry, even in at some real or imaginary wrong, and they paint their face black, which denotes that their hearts were also black. That means they lacked the maturity to understand. They were filled with darkness inside. They did not have the light of knowledge. They did not have the light of understanding, of comprehending the situation, right? So similarly, just like they had painted their face black, similarly their hearts were also black and dark, and then they were also cruel and relentless. So they lacked maturity, they lacked the far-sightedness, they were very cruel, they were bent on taking revenge against the wrongs that have been done by them without thinking, right? So that is very important again. And the next one is, why did Seattle want to end up the hostilities? Why? Because he knew that his tribe was at an inferior position, right? So he was not, they were not so much like they could not compete with the superior whites. They were not powerful enough to battle against the whites who were in a superior position. And of course, his tribes had nothing to gain. They had already lost so many things, almost on the verge of extinction. So even if they battle, so they have nothing to gain from that battle. So therefore, he wanted the hostilities to end. He always advocated peace. Next, how do the tribal men regard the ashes of their ancestors? So again, he is talking about the difference in the really culture of the whites and the cultural difference between the whites and the tribal people. The tribal men regarded their ashes of the ancestors as sacred and they respected them. Okay, and they were like the ground where they are buried, that ground is considered holy. So such was the respect of the tribals for the ancestors. And then is, how do the whites feel about the dead people? The whites, unlike the tribal people, had showed no such respect, and they leave their graves unattended. So that was the difference between the showcase of respect towards their ancestors, towards the people who have already died. This was also the cultural difference between the whites and the natives. The natives, they loved their ancestors. They considered the place where the dead have been buried as holy, whereas the whites, they left their graves unattended. They were not so much attached to their ancestors. Next is, what is the religion of the tribal men and how is it different from the whites? So this is very important, the religious difference between the tribal men and the whites. First of all, you'll talk about the ancestors, like how did they pay respect to the ancestors and they did not, right? So the religion of the tribal people is the tradition of their ancestors, the dreams of their old men given to them in solemn hours of the night by the Great Spirit, their God, and is written in the hearts of their people. And this is different from the whites. So the tribal men's religion written on the hearts of the people, whereas the religion of the white men, they were actually etched on the stones, right? So they had to be reminded constantly, even though they had, been the religious commandments have been written on stones, but they still did not understand the significance of their religion. So this is the religious difference between the tribal men and the whites. Very, very, very important question. Then why do the dead of the tribals never forget them or this beautiful world? Because they were attached to their land very much. They loved its valleys, its rivers, its mountains, right? And they always had this fond affection in their hearts, and they return even from the other world. They were so connected with their land that even after being dead, they refused to leave the land and they returned from the other world to guide, to console, and to comfort their own people. So such was the connection between the ancestors and the tribals, and also the tribals and the land, right? So two kinds of connection shown. How does Seattle predict the future of his tribe to be? Seattle predicts that his tribe might not survive for long, right? He says that the future of his tribe is bleak, and he feels, he is showing, despair. He is losing his hope. He says that sad voiced winds moan in a distance and a grim fate seems to be in store for them. So that means their fate is, grim, and he is not hopeful for the future of his people. He says that in future our people would no longer inhabit this land, right? But he is sure that his people will prepare stolidly to meet their doom whenever they hear of the approaching footsteps of their destroyer. So who are these destroyers? The whites are the destroyers, and he says that we are prepared to meet our end. He gives a comparison with a doe. Doe is a female deer who, though wounded, right, who is wounded and who is waiting for the hunter, footsteps of the hunter, who is hearing the footsteps of the hunter, right? Similarly, these tribal people, they are wounded, almost they are on the verge of extinction, but they are still prepared for the doom. They are stolid. Stolid means they have lost the feeling of, and stolid means, you know, stoic, right? So they are not feeling anxious anymore. They are prepared mentally to meet their end at the hands of their destroyer, and their destroyer is they are the whites, right? So very, very, very important, the future of the tribes as predicted by Seattle. Next is, how does the speaker differentiate his tribal people from the white people? So now this question is very important, almost encapsulating the entire chapter, where he's talking about the various differences between the whites and the tribal people, which because of which he says that we cannot be brothers, we are, you know, we cannot be together, day cannot be with night, morning mist runs away from the sunlight, just as we are, we are also similarly different. Just as morning mist, you know, he runs away, he cannot stay in the presence of sunlight. Similarly, we also cannot stay in the presence of the native, like the whites. So there are several differences which led Seattle to come to the conclusion that the whites and the natives cannot mingle with each other. They cannot be brothers, right? First is the religious difference, which we already talked about, the difference in the god, right? God of the tribals and God of the natives. Next is the cultural difference. Very, very, very important. Cultural difference as in the difference in the burial process. So after burial, what happens? The natives, they pay respect to the ancestors. The place where they are buried is considered holy. Whereas for the Christians, for the whites, what do? They leave their graves unattended, right? Next is difference in terms of love for nature. So yes, the whites, they are not so much connected with nature. They have moved far away from nature because they are advocating industrialization, westernization, modernization, leading to the depletion of nature. And whereas the natives, they are being the aboriginals, they are close to nature, concerned with nature, concerned about the nature's protection and maintenance, right? They are barefooted. So when they are barefooted, they have a close connection with the soil beneath, which is enriched by their blood. The whites, on the other hand, are only concerned about encroaching the other's territories, destroying its natural habitat, destroying the forest cover, destroying and depleting nature because of the westernization, right? And the whites have an imperialistic mindset, whereas what are they doing? They are in a superior position, right? So superior position, having an imperialistic mindset, having an urge to control, and this urge to control looms large, right? Whereas the tribals are powerless, on the verge of extinction, right? And they have an attachment towards their own land. The whites, having an imperialistic and controlling and dominating attitude, they try to encroach upon others' land, right? But they do not have the connection with their land as like the natives, who are closely connected with their land. So these are some of the differences of the white and the tribal people. These are the points. Again, I am telling you repeatedly, you need to elaborate on each of these points, taking instances from your text. And I have already explained to you verbally what are the instances that you're going to take from the book, from the chapter. So please do take the instances and quote. You may also quote from few lines from your lesson so as to create a good impression and create an impression that you have understood the chapter very well. Right. So next is another important question. Why does Seattle say that they may be brothers after all? So at one point of time he was constantly saying that we cannot live together, day and night cannot be together, morning mist cannot be with the rising sun, and therefore we are different, we cannot be brothers because your God is different, your God is a protector of you all, but they have abandoned their children, the Red Indians. So they have protected you like what? Like, an infant gets the protection of his father. So we belong to a completely different father, therefore we cannot be brothers. So these were the arguments that he had previously given, arguments in favor of not becoming brothers. But at one point they say we are connected from one point. And what is that point? That point is our common fate, the inevitable death. Both of us cannot be spared from in the hands of time and death. Neither your God could, your God could protect you, from the fate, from the untimely, like from the death that is awaiting. Neither my God, right? So at this point, so death is actually uniting us, right? So even your God, who is like friend to you, he also cannot exempt you from the common destiny. What is that common destiny? That every man is going to decay, every man is going to die. So thus we are bound by a common destiny, and therefore in that case we can be brothers. So very, very, very important question. Next is, what is the condition laid by the speaker before he accepts the white man's proposition? So one condition that he lays down is, you need to give us our rights, right? You should not deny us of the privilege of visiting our tombs of our ancestors, friends or children, because they are our sacred grounds and we pay respect to our ancestors. So you should not deny this privilege. So that is one condition that the speaker, or that is Seattle, actually lays before. How is every part of the soil sacred to his people? So another instance of their attachment to the land. So when you are talking about the theme of attachment with the land, you can of course take points from this answer, right? Because every hillside, every valley, plain has been hallowed by some sad or happy events. Okay. So the dead and the dumb, they are even connected with the memories of the present, right? Memories of the events. And of course, they are more welcomed. Their footsteps are more welcomed than the footsteps of the whites by the soil of this earth, right? This place. So their bare feet are conscious of the sympathetic touch. Very, very, very important. Include these points and frame your answers. Right? Very important question. When will the shores swarm with the invisible dead of the speaker's tribe, and why? Very important again. The shores will swarm the invisible dead of the speaker's tribe when the white man's children think themselves alone in the field, the store, the shop, upon the highway, or in the silence of the pathless woods, but they will never be alone. Okay, so the spirits of these ancestors, as they refuse to leave the ground, they will hover around, right? So at night, in the white man's cities, villages, when they are silent and they think that they are actually lonely and deserted. At that time, these people, the dead ancestors, spirits would be hovering around them, and they will still love this beautiful land, because they are very, very, very much attached to this beautiful land. Next is explain what the speaker says about death, which comes at the end of the stanza, very philosophical part of his speech. The most philosophical part of the speech of Seattle is at the end, where he talks about the inevitability of death, and where he talks about death uniting the two, the ancestors as well as, the natives as well as whites, in spite of all kinds of differences which he has mentioned throughout the text constantly. So they say that they will all die one day, but he feels that death is not just death. There is no death at all. Death means just a change of world. So the people will just move from this world to another world. That is what death is all about. So the last two lines are extremely philosophical. And with this, we come to the last topic of our important discussion on the question answers, which is about Chief Seattle. Now, Chief Seattle's character sketch or anything related to Chief Seattle, you can take the points from here and frame your answers. Okay? Of course, taking instances from the text, again and again I am repeating myself that you need to take the instances from the text, okay, in order to justify these points. So I have made your task easy. I have given you the points on the basis of which you may, create your answer taking instances from the book or the text. But please don't forget that you need to do that work on your own, right? So first of all, he belongs to a Suquamish tribe. He's a prominent figure among the tribal people, and his importance is such that the American city Seattle is named after him, and he is especially known for his speech, which is delivered in 1854. Why did he deliver this speech? As a response to the American government's land treaty, which proposed to buy the native lands. And who made this proposal? Isaac Stevens, who was the governor of Washington Territory. Then he talks about the reconciliation between his tribe and whites. He argues in favor of our, ecological responsibility and respect for the Native American land rights. He is an advocate of peace. He wants to end the hostility. He does not want to engage themselves into any battle, right? Because he knows that he is in a disadvantaged position, right? Then he is an excellent orator. How is he an excellent orator? Of course, again, you have to take instances from the speech, right? Wherever you find it necessary, right? So his speech is logical. Take the part where he is logical, where he is becoming very logical, right? He is very persuasive. He's trying to persuade. His speech is very persuasive. It's ending in philosophical note, so take the ending note, right? Then his speech shows his wisdom and knowledge, right? So very, very important. All these points, you need to take one or two lines from the text in order to, justify these points, okay? And then self-critical. He is self-critical. Where is he showing his self-critical attitude? When he says that it's not only the whites who are responsible for our present condition, but even the natives, right? Their anger, the youth's impulsive decision, that is also responsible for our condition, which is today. Leadership qualities, he showcases excellent leadership qualities. He has the power in him to speak out his mind, even though he knows that he is in a disadvantaged position, but still he speaks out his mind boldly, right? So he has that leadership quality in him. He has respect and concern for their tribe. He respects all the traditions, all the cultural aspects of his tribe, and he does not want those to ebb away, right? So he shows he wants to preserve the rich cultural heritage of his tribe. He wants to preserve the tribe, right? And he shows respect and concern for their tribe. understands the importance of nature. Yes, he does understand the importance of nature, which we see since the beginning of his speech when he talks about how the nature has been benevolent as to give us everything, but we have done what we have done in return is to, exploit nature, take it for granted. So these were all the important topics which can be asked in your examination. I hope this video on Chief Seattle's speech, both the sessions were useful, and now I think most of your doubts have been cleared. In case you still have any doubt, you can of course post in the comment box. So your comments are always welcome. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video and hope to see you again in our next session. Till then, take care and bye-bye.